Good evening, everybody, and thanks so much. I'm seeing already a few participants have joined our webinar this evening. It's an absolute pleasure to have you with us and have the opportunity to speak about our MBA program and hear from our panelists who are going to be speaking with us, sharing their experiences just very soon, and give you the opportunity to ask questions and get further insights on specific issues that are on your mind or curiosity that are on your mind now that you're embarking on this event with us and you're gonna get to hear about our programs. I'm seeing people are still joining, but I think in the interest of jumping forward and getting to hear the interesting stories that are gonna come our way very soon, I'm gonna start the introduction. My name is Federica Pazzaglia. I'm a professor here in the Smurfit School, and I'm also the director of the Smurfit School and associate dean in the College of Business. So truly a pleasure to be here. I've been part of this event before, and I know the power and the inspiring ability it can have. All of you who are joining us this evening are interested in getting to know our program more, and as you see, there's going to be opportunities coming our way very soon. The event that we are attending this evening serves many purposes. On the one side, of course, for us is the opportunity to welcome you and getting to know what issues are on your mind and what you're thinking. But also, and more importantly for you, is an opportunity to get a kind of like an inside view of doing an MBA here with us at the Smurfit School and getting to hear the stories and the experiences of four panelists who are currently or have been where you are right now. So getting to see how they decided eventually to pursue their MBA and how the experience has been or is so far for them. You're also going to see and hear about our commitment as a school to increasing female representation on our MBA program, the many initiatives that we have introduced in this respect, especially in terms of facilitating participation. So we want to, first of all, try to tear down some of the barriers that traditionally have been there, and certainly in the past, for female participants on MBA programs. And you'll hear about the scholarships that the Smurfit School has introduced. You're also going to hear about the innovations in program delivery, such as our EMBA modular, which has been introduced recently. But especially, and as I was saying, you will get to hear the experiences that our participants are going to share and also have opportunity to ask them questions at them and anybody, including our program team and our admissions team who are here with us on the webinar. So I'm going to, at this point, again say you're very welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And I'm going to pass over the screen to Adele, who's going to talk to you about the Smurfit School MBA. Thank you so much, Adele.
Thank you. Thank you, Federica. Good evening, everyone. My name is Adele O'Leary, and you're most welcome here this evening. As Federica has said, the purpose of this evening is to provide you with some insight into the MBA programs at UCD Smurfit School, which I will do by sharing, I promise, a very short number of slides. This is our first webinar for this recruitment cycle, but we have held a number of in-person events over the last number of months. So hopefully you will have met some of us in person by now. We have a dedicated MBA team here at Smurfit School. And as I go through the presentation this evening, we are also joined by our academic director, Professor Kieran Heavey, by Sinead Cunningham, who takes care of our executive MBAs, and by Catherine, who takes care of our full-time students, and by my colleague, Mairead Mulvey, who's our MBA admissions manager. So the team will use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. So if there are any questions, please submit them, and we will answer them as we go. In order to keep my presentation as concise as possible, I have several links to content that we will post into the chat function. But please remember to use the Q&A function for your questions. We're doing this because we want to allow as much time as possible to hear from our fantastic panel this evening. Sharon, Orla, Emma, and Blessing will be in conversation with Federica, and you will also be able to submit questions using the Q&A function during that session also. I will join the conversation and I will put the questions to the panelists towards the end of the session. At the very end of the evening, our colleague Mairead will give some final details on the So let's get started. So why the Smurfit MBA? A key question you should ask is, how does the school and specifically the program rank in the global environment? The answer to both of those questions is highly. And to give you some context about the UCD Business School itself, we are one of the longest established business school in Europe. In the context of the MBA particularly, we are one of the earliest European innovators, launching our executive MBA program as far back as 1964. So we were one of the first in Europe to do so. The school itself became the first world-ranked school by the Financial Times as far back as the year 2000, and we were the first school in Ireland to receive the Triple Crown accreditation from the awarding bodies in the United States, the United Kingdom, and in Europe, which are known as AACSB, AMBA, and EQUIS, and that was as far back as 2002. And to put that in context for you, there are just over 100 Triple Crown schools globally, out of almost 15,000 business schools. So we are in a very elite group globally. The school is a founding member of GNAM, which is the Global Network of Advanced Management, a partnership of international business schools, which was initiated by the Yale School of Management. And I'll refer to this again later in terms of how it supports your learning on the program. From a program point of view, we are, as one of the oldest MBA programs in Europe, we have a track record and a reputation for delivering an outstanding program. Our history also means that we have by far the largest MBA global alumni base, with a now growing number of female alumni. Last August saw our largest intake of female students in one class cohort, and our EMBA class in year one is now 61% female. Over our 3 class cohorts, females now represent 48% of all current MBA students. So as Federica said, we're particularly proud of this strategy and that we have used to attract females to the program. So there's probably a couple of questions at the front of your mind that have brought you here this evening. Is an MBA right for me? Do I have what it takes to complete the MBA? What can I expect in terms of workload? How will I balance all the other aspects of my life and undertake the MBA? Well, the good news is I'm not going to try and answer those questions. We'll hear directly from our panel shortly. But what I can tell you is that everyone has in common is a desire to accelerate their career. And in what is an increasingly competitive employment market, to take control of their own career and to ultimately plan income potential over the longer term. So what makes the Smurfit MBA unique? There are 3 core features of our MBA that we believe make it unique, both in domestic and an international context. We focus on academic excellence, action learning, and challenging experiences. Our curriculum provides an in-depth and wide-ranging coverage of all of the major disciplines, from finance to marketing to strategy and HR. Our curriculum is updated on a regular basis to include emerging disciplines such as digital transformation and data analytics, but we also include core execution skills such as managing supply chains, operations, and managing the negotiations process. We offer also specialized electives in digital marketing and customer analytics, strategy execution, and strategy development systems. What this means is that you benefit from a holistic academic experience. My colleagues will post links to the curriculum now in the chat function for you for both of our MBA programs. And I would encourage you to spend some time reviewing the program at your leisure. Every module is linked to what we call a module descriptor, so you can actually click on it and read further about what's involved in each of the modules. But what really makes our curriculum unique is the bench strength of our faculty, both academic thought leaders and leading practitioners. This means that you get to benefit from the latest academic and practitioner insights, which will ultimately give you a competitive advantage. What also distinguishes our curriculum is our emphasis on action learning, with innovative and varied teaching methodologies, including guest speakers from industry and from our prestigious alumni base. In many of our classes, we follow the Harvard case study method. The case method immerses you in the role of chief decision maker as you navigate the challenges facing leading companies across the globe. Repeatedly, you will be asked to diagnose the situation, consider alternative courses of action for addressing business opportunities and challenges, and most importantly, learn the skill of debating and defending your choices amongst your peers. Most of all, the Smurfit MBA recognises the importance of peer learning, and you will have ample opportunity to benefit from the unique experiences of one another through class participation and group work in your study teams. And importantly, you will make a network of professionals and friends for life. Finally, we move the needle on your personal and professional development by immersing you in challenging experiences. These include the Global Immersion Week, offered as part of the GNAM program, which I spoke to you about earlier, where you can choose to travel to one of 32 leading business schools globally to participate in a week-long immersion taken on-site at one of our 32 partner universities in the GNAM program. Featured on the left are some of our current full-time students who traveled this year, for example, to ESMT in Berlin in October to pursue a week-long module of their choice. We also complete the Doing Business in International Markets module, which is centered around traveling to a country with a different cultural, economic, and institutional context to Ireland, where you participate in company visits, meetings with high-level executives, and cultural activities. And just last week, we returned from Singapore to a very successful trip, which we completed there. Our international consulting project happens in June every year. This is an intense week spent in an EU city, working on a live business challenge presented by a local company at the destination. And this is some of last year's class collaborating on a company project in Prague. Now, all of these interventions are specifically designed and placed in the timetable to allow you to synthesize your learnings over the program, to put the skills that you're learning into practice, and to prepare you to take on the final project, the capstone project, which happens at the end of both programs. In addition to the academic content, our dedicated MBA careers manager and us in the program team will work with you to optimize your readiness and your competitiveness in the post-program employment market. Or indeed, as it happens, we need to work with you while you're on the program, as many of our executive MBAs make significant career moves while they're actually studying with us. Both the MBA programs have a LEAP. It's what we call our Leadership and Employability program, which is tailored to the specific timetable of each program. It's unique in the marketplace, and it's specifically designed to develop a heightened self-awareness of your behavioral competency set, your strengths and your developmental needs, which we benchmark against your peers in the market. You will hear from our panelists, hopefully later this evening, about how various aspects of this program have helped them and assisted them in any career moves they've made to date. It's an in-depth program, and I don't have time to get into it too much this evening, but my colleagues will also post a link to the relevant section on our website, which I would encourage you to read again at your leisure, and if you have any questions, to follow up with any of us. So after that whistle-stop tour of the program content, I am going to now take you through the choice of MBA program formats, which we offer here at UCD Smurfit School. Very simply, there are two. You can choose to study full-time with us for 12 months or to study part-time, also known as the Executive MBA, which takes 24 months to complete. In general, the academic modules are very similar on both programs, and what really differs is the delivery format. As you would expect on the full-time program, students are on campus every day during the academic year, and the international travel modules are a required part of the program. On the Executive MBA, students are typically on campus once a month on Friday and Saturday, and we also require attendance for occasional Thursdays to complete the LEAP program, and we have exam dates that are part of the UCD exam calendar. What's really important to say is that all dates are set in advance for the 2 years of the executive program, which allows for flexibility at work. And we also expect you to travel once with us over the 2 years, either as part of the Doing Business and International module or the International Consultancy module. You have the choice. My colleagues will post links to the timetable for the Executive MBA, as you will see now that we already have the dates for the 24-26 class already set in stone and are available to view on our website. What's also different slightly is the makeup of the two different programs. Our full-time students tend to be slightly younger cohort and have an international focus, whereas our executive students are slightly older with more work experience. There is a detailed section on our website, the links to which will be shared with you now, which is a comparison table, and I would encourage you to read it in detail. Our full-time MBA is an immersive learning experience, while our EMBA suits an independent learner. But it is important to say that group work features heavily on both programs, so you're never alone. And through strong teamwork, everyone feels supported and confident as they go through their MBA journey. As I said, we have near gender equity on both programs, but we also strive for a diversity of sector and industry when making up the classes. Thank you for your attention now this evening. I'm going to pass you back to Federica, who's going to introduce you to our panel this evening, and we'll start our panel discussion. Thank you so much, Federica.
Thank you so much, Adele. And a very big thanks to our 4 panelists for the evening. I think you guys will turn on your camera very soon, so we get to see you and we get to hear your stories and your experiences. So I'm gonna ask 4 of you to give a very, maybe like a 2-minute brief introduction of yourself and the program of which you are a student or an alumni of. But first of all, I would say once again, on behalf of all of us, thank you for taking the time and for agreeing to share your stories and just your experiences really of what brought you onto the program and how your career trajectory has evolved since. So again, as I said, like maybe like a 2-minute introduction of each one of the 4 of you and whoever wants to jump in so that we can put the insights then in context. Emma, you've unmuted yourself, yeah. So you are going to go first, I think.
Why not? I'll break the ice. So my name's Emma Callan. I'm currently in the position of Director of Commercialisation with Enterprise Ireland. I joined the Executive MBA in September 2022. At that time, I was Director of Manufacturing and Supply Chain, and I had over 15 years experience in Ireland, Australia, and the States, primarily in manufacturing operations, primarily in medtech. So my work experience to date had quite a narrow focus. And while I was making career change, like I was moving career-wise, my role function stayed pretty similar and my industry was the same. And I was very keen to broaden my perspective. And I also wanted language to help communicate my ideas more effectively to non-functional colleagues so that I wasn't just speaking in a perspective just the people in my function understood as well. So for those reasons, I was really keen to take on the MBA, to get that breadth and also to get the language. And yeah, look, absolutely no brainer for my, like, I'm already starting to reap some of the awards, and we'll move on to that, I assume, later in the panel.
Thank you so much, Emma.
No problem.
Anybody else who wants to introduce themselves? Next, Blessing.
Yeah, hello everyone. Good evening. My name is Blessing and I'm from Nigeria. I joined the full-time MBA class resumed September 2022. I currently work as a data protection officer / product expert at Fonovation. Prior to coming to Ireland for the MBA, I was working as a compliance officer in the anti-money laundering / countering of terrorism and countering the financing of terrorism in the banking industry in Nigeria. I would say the MBA has paid off for me, and hopefully I get to share more of that along the way.
Thank you so much, Blessing. Orla.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me along this evening. So I'm Orla Kavanagh. I work as Strategy and Operations Director in KPMG Ireland. I did the MBA. I kicked it off in 2019 and I did the Executive MBA. So that was 2 years, finished up 2021. So I'm nearly 3 years the other end of the MBA at this stage. Prior to doing the MBA, I was very finance focused. So I'm trained as an accountant, a chartered accountant back in 2010-ish. So for me, the MBA, similar to Emma, was very much like broadening that perspective and opening up opportunities that I didn't even know existed. So very grateful to it at this point. And as the guy said, I'm sure we'll talk into it a bit more detail as we go on.
Thank you so much, Orla. Sharon.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me. I'm sorry, I'm actually traveling at the moment, but I should be in a more static position in a few moments, so apologies for that. Anyway, embrace the chaos. You know, there's a lot going on. So my name is Sharon McManus, and I have 27 years experience in the Irish Defence Forces and the European Defence Agency, and I've worked across a number of different types of projects, work strands, areas, but mainly in the engineering and the tech space. And recently I have been looking to, I suppose, expand my, my experience. I specialised in sustainability and energy engineering over my career, and I felt that with all that is happening in that space now and the importance of it, I wanted to get more into that area. So I suppose I'm pleased to say tonight that I have been, already I have changed careers since starting the MBA. So it's been a real whirlwind, and the MBA was really instrumental in that. I am taking up a role as head of sustainability with ESB Group, and so quite a lot of change happening at the moment. I'm doing the Executive MBA. I have 3 children. I live in East Galway and obviously a full-time job. So there's quite a lot going on, but it is entirely manageable. And also I have found that the MBA has given me a lot of time for some strategic thinking and space to make big decisions, paradoxically. So I'm happy to answer any questions about that later in the webinar.
Thank you so much. Thanks all of you for already giving us a glimpse of how much the MBA is meant for you, even though for some of you it's really kind of recently started. So my first question, which I think all of you or most of you have touched on, was when and why did an MBA become a consideration for you? And you're most welcome to expand on it. This is really a question for everybody. But then I'm also interested in getting a sense of how did you get to choose to study with us here in the Smurfit School? So maybe if you could just give us a sense of your journey to join the MBA.
Shall I jump in, Federica?
Yes, please.
So I mentioned at the start, like, so it was very much around broadening my perspective. I think the first time it came to my mind about doing the MBA, it was a guy in work talking about doing the MBA, and I was like, I could do something like that. You know, the way whenever you see someone else talking about it, but then I let it kind of percolate for a while, over a few years. That was 2015-ish. I think I started thinking about it seriously. So broadening my perspective was one of the main reasons. I also wanted to kind of maximize my productivity. So what I found is whenever I get stuff thrown at me from kind of external forces, that's whenever you can find, and you're under that kind of pressure, that's where you can find new levels of productivity that you didn't even know existed. So I thought, why not push myself into something that's really uncomfortable to try and see what comes out the other end. Hopefully it worked, but you know, it was tough at the time. In terms of why UCD, it was very much around the rankings. So everything that Adele was talking at the start, right? So best MBA in Ireland, certainly at the time. It also had the most amount of scholarships. So I wanted to maximize my potential getting a scholarship. So that was very much an influencing factor whenever I came to picking UCD. And I would thoroughly recommend UCD just in terms of having been through it now at this point.
Thank you so much, Orla. It's great to hear. Anybody else? Emma?
Yeah, I can jump in. So look, I suppose something similar to Orla a little bit. Sorry, actually, sorry, he's trying to get in. No, similar to Orla, in 2014, I had started thinking about the MBA, but I was doing a little bit of still traveling with work, and that continued on for another few years. And it continued to be a thing in the back of my head. And as you can see, there was distractions that happened along the way. And it's just one thing or another came along, and it got to the point after, and it was a little bit of the post-COVID thing. It's kind of like, it's kind of just get on with it and do it a little bit. So did that. I did a bit of research. It was actually the launch of, I had focused on UCD. I didn't have the bandwidth to go with the full time. One of my team was doing the part-time evenings MBA, and I thought that was quite difficult. It was the launch of the executive modular MBA that was just such a changing point for me for how accessible the UCD Smurfit MBA became, and that just shifted everything, and straight away I signed up. So that for me was such a game changer. It was really flexible, very accessible. So that change completely sealed the deal for myself.
Thank you so much, Emma. So flexibility seems to be a big keyword was on your mind, certainly a big keyword for the MBA.
Yeah, you can see here from the background why it might be such an important factor. But funny enough, I just make the comment, I wasn't long in the MBA, and I got talking to a girl who had 5 kids and was working full time, and her husband was full time working as well. And I quickly learned that everyone has stuff going on. You just have to get on with it and make it work. So I kind of have kept that in my head. If she could do it, and she came across so effortless, we can all do it.
Thank you so much, Emma. Blessing or Sharon, want to take the next? Blessing.
Yeah, happy to jump in. So I think I first began considering the MBA in 2020. I had just completed my ACCA Chartered Accounting exams, and I was looking to go up the career ladder. And I did a bit of research on all my professional mentors who had gone all the way to leadership, and every single one of them, male and female, had MBAs. So that kind of made up my mind for me. And then as to why UCD, I was looking for an MBA with global recognition. I wanted to have that, have the MBA with that kind of school to enhance my global competitiveness. And I felt UCD was perfect in that category. And then also I got attracted to UCD because of the broad alumni network. Like literally almost everywhere you turn, there's someone who has been to Smurfit and is ready to help you. So that was a big turn on for me. And then finally, coming from Nigeria, it was important that I got into an English-speaking country. And UCD was an island, English-speaking. All the boxes went check, check, check. And I was like, yes, we're coming to UCD.
Thank you so much, Blessing. Thank you so much for your answer. Sharon.
Yeah, so I had thought about doing an MBA for quite a number of years, and I had friends that did the MBA, and including the MBA in Smurfit, but it never seemed like the right time between career and life, etc. I got promoted in work last year to a position that I thought I would really be fulfilled with, and I suppose I realized once I was promoted that actually I was looking for a bigger change, and there was something more that I wanted to do. And that really catalyzed me then to apply for the MBA, because I thought that would assist me in trying to, I suppose, distill down that change that I really wanted. And it did, of course. Why did I choose Smurfit? I suppose I looked at all of the MBAs and I thought that it just had that something extra, that something special in terms of the global recognition. and in terms of its reputation. And I said, if I'm going to invest the time and the money into doing this, that I wanted to do the best one available. So that's why I chose the Smurfit MBA. But there were some barriers, like doing the GMAT test. That had put me off for a couple of years. But when I actually made the decision to do it, and I sat down and I opened the books, I realized how straightforward that actually was in the end. And a couple of other things, kind of almost mental barriers that you put in your way. But once I had decided that I wanted to do it, that was it. That was, I was going to do it and do the Smurfit one.
Thank you so much. Thanks to all of you. I think all of your answers have picked on things that I'm sure are on the mind of participants who are on the webinar with us in terms of taking the step to do an MBA and moving then to your experience in the MBA. And for those of you who have already finished, obviously there's a broader set of experiences, but I think that it'll be for everybody, maybe what you found so far or overall to be a highlight of your MBA experience, and maybe along with that, maybe something you found either challenging or surprising that you think maybe worth sharing with those who are on the call with us. Blessing, you unmuted yourself.
Yeah, happy to begin. I think I had two big challenges. The first was I was making a physical move. I moved from Nigeria all the way to Ireland. Culture was sharply different. Even simple mundane things I found very difficult. Getting accommodation, getting food that I would like. I got lost in the first week several times, commuting to school and back. But I found the culture to be very welcoming. The Irish people are so nice. I once had someone walk me from the train station to my accommodation to make sure I didn't get lost that day. So all of that felt like, okay, yes, it's difficult, it's challenging, but it's not too much. We can do it and there is help. So those were my biggest challenges, basically. As much as the cultural change was one of my biggest challenges, it turned out to be the highlight of the MBA for me, because in my class of almost 30, I was working with an American, a Vietnamese, Chinese person, Indians, Irish people. That mix of culture broadened my horizon in a way I hadn't previously experienced. I got to see different points of views from different cultural backgrounds, and it helped me to better network and communicate with people. And it has been one of my greatest strengths post the MBA on the job. I get to work with different people from different cultures and understand where they're coming from, empathize better, and just generally work better with them. So I think, yeah, that has been the highlight of my MBA, that diversity experience, both on the MBA in class and on our trips, international business consulting trips, all of the trips we had, it was the highlight of my MBA.
Thank you so much, Blessing. Thanks for highlighting the networks that one forms also during the program and the kind of eye-opening experience. Anybody else wants to share their experiences?
Yeah. So for me, the challenges whenever I started, so I started August 2019. So the first challenge was I got promoted in November that year. So I kind of was in a busy enough job, and then that went into like a much higher pressure job at the time. Like obviously I was loving it because it was great, it was promotion, everything. But just trying to combine like a new job and doing the MBA at the same time. And then November 2019 turned into March 2020. And it all hit the fan, and it was just absolute carnage for whatever length of time between work was really, really. So the team I was looking after, I worked in Primark at the time, and Primark went from taking in like 200 million cash a week to taking in zero cash, and they had 70,000 people to pay, they had landlords to pay, they had suppliers to pay. So the team I worked on, or I was looking after, was a team that worked with the business to try and strip out costs and cash from the business. So it was just an insane time in work, and then you're trying to balance in the MBA at the same time. Like now everybody obviously has their challenges. And then I suppose just the whole MBA then went from being in person to being online. Which was obviously like it had to be the way it was. A little bit, like it's probably a pity that it was that way because we didn't get to do any of the international trips or do any of that. But it was still fab, but that was for sure the biggest challenge. In terms of highlights, I would have to say it's definitely the people that I got to meet and the caliber of the teams that I got to work with. Like it's phenomenal to experience just working in one of those really, really high performing teams where everybody pulls their weight and everybody works towards the same objective, because everybody that does the MBA is so motivated and so trying to get it done as well. Like they're all very similar to the type of person you are in a lot of ways. So it was really just excellent to see that level of caliber on the teams, and like just such good friendships that have come out of it since. Like I was out with 4 of the guys that I was on a team with there on Friday night. Like, so they really do run for a long time as well, those friendships and those relationships.
Thank you so much, Orla. I think that I'm getting a sense the networks and just the ties with people in the class and in other batches. It's a highlight that is coming across so far. Emma.
Yeah, it's going to echo what Blessing and Orla have said. It's your class and your classmates that you get to meet, and you hear their experiences and the wealth of that experience. And as you're sitting there in the lecture rooms, hearing the discussions going on, you feel like you're part of something really special. Like you hear the experiences, you hear the lectures. It's being involved in that. It's such a highlight. Challenges being faced through the course. It's just the juggle. It's just a juggle of, you still have work, you still have the demands in your personal life and stuff. Like, it was lovely for the first 6 weeks where you had everything kind of well planned. And then after, once you kind of started to move on from that first 6 weeks and real life started to hit, you to kind of juggle and you to deal with change, and you just switch around the routine. But being really honest, there's so many supports there within the course, and with your lecturers and with your class rep, and then with Sinead and Edel as well. There's a huge level of support. So while it would have been challenging and stressful, it was manageable at the same time as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Emma. Sharon.
Yes, thank you. Well, I suppose I'm on it since last August, so I haven't even completed the first year yet, but it feels that, I've gone through a full journey already. I really wanted to get, better in terms of, financial acumen. It's something coming from the private sector or from the public sector and civil service sector. It's something that I wouldn't have had a huge amount of experience to deal with, and I wanted to be immersed in that very diverse classroom environment, and that's been really enriching. And to hear how the private sector deal with certain problems that I would have dealt with in public sector over the years, and how they've applied different approaches to problem solving and to financial issues, etc., has been really enlightening for me. And that was always the gap that I felt in my knowledge that I needed to fill, and I knew the MBA would be ideally placed to do that. And it doesn't go into so much depth that you feel lost or anything, but there's a really nice dive into it to give you enough information. And like, so far I've done financial accounting, management accounting, and corporate finance. So there are 3 topics that I would never have had any experience of, even in engineering or sustainability or in my defence sector work. So that's been great so far. Also, obviously, since I've changed roles, I really benefited from the LEAP program and the assistance that I got with my CV, and for me translating my military experience and I suppose the taxonomy that we'd use to describe a lot of that into civilian speak, for want of a better term. So that was worth everything to me, because that was always going to be a challenge for me. So far so good. I suppose coming from the Defence Forces, I was probably always used to a bit of chaos, and as I mentioned at the start of the call, so the juggle is the same as always. And but I have to say that your family have to buy into it, they have to support you doing it. And I really appreciate those Fridays and Saturdays in Smurfit where you can sit back and just absorb for 2 days from amazing lectures and amazing classmates. And it's actually, for me, it's a break.
Thank you so much. Thank you much, Sharon, and thanks so much to all our panelists on their answer to this question. My next question, really, it's kind of a personal interest of mine. The MBA is known to be a transformative program. it really opens up its perspectives, you know, or career opportunities, it makes things happen in a way. And so I'm listening to your stories, and I'm sure the participants on the webinar as well, all of you have experience of either career change, personal change. So really maybe reflecting on some of the things you told us already, or others that you've experienced in your career. How do you feel the MBA has maybe helped or supported, whether professionally or personally, in making those changes that all of you have described so far? Blessing, you were faster, I think, so you're going to, and then Orla next.
Okay, yeah. So professionally, I think I've made a triple jump in my career. I've changed function, I've changed geography, I've changed industry, and the MBA facilitated that move. So I was previously working in anti-money laundering and countering the financing of terrorism. And while on the MBA, I fell in love with cybersecurity. And I knew I wanted to work in cybersecurity, but I didn't feel like I had enough of the skills to make that jump. But thanks to the executive coaching program, thanks to the career employability network that we had, I had lots of coaching, lots of stimulation, lots of help with my CV, interview preparation, how to show my transferable skills, all of that put together helped me make that move. So currently I'm working in cybersecurity just the way I wanted to. And I think I owe a lot of it to the MBA. So that's professionally. Personally, I think I'm a much better rounded, culturally sensible individual because of the experience of the MBA. And I am very grateful to have had the experience and to have had the opportunity to go through it.
Thank you so much, Blessing. Orla?
Yeah, thank you, Federica. I think I liked Blessing's word around making the triple jump in terms of moving on. I think I made a double jump. So I stayed in Dublin, but I moved industry, and I moved kind of my specialism as well. So I was very much retail for a long time, and finance and accounting. And I've managed to get into like a strategy and operations role in a consulting firm. I think what I took from the MBA, just it kind of just gives you so much confidence to go for things that you probably wouldn't have thought were within your remit before. Like you do start thinking outside your box and outside where you're naturally meant to fall, and you kind of just think, why not? Why couldn't I do that? Somebody else could do that, so it's not me. Who is it? I think it also helps you get rid of any kind of perfectionism tendencies, so you probably end up being more productive with less time, just because through the MBA, you're put into like this kind of pressure cooker situation. So you just have to get it done, and you can't get everything done to the standard that you maybe would have done in your undergrad. So you kind of get to grips with that. It actually, I don't know how anyone else feels, but everything feels a lot easier now, like post MBA. Like you put anything on my desk, it's like, yeah, fine, whatever. No problem. And you put yourself forward for projects that you mightn't have thought you had the confidence to before. So everything feels a lot easier post MBA than it did pre MBA. Coincidence? I don't know. And yeah, like it just means that your skills are so much more transferable. So where you would have thought your skills were for a sector and for an industry, you just realize that they really are just a set of skills that can be transferred over to another role, another industry, another anything, whatever you want. It really does open so many doors.
Thank you so much. Very empowering messages that are coming through so far. Thank you both. Emma.
It's all going to sound very similar. So I was halfway through year one when I changed sectors, changed roles, and then a month later changed location from East Coast to West Coast. I think the MBA was instrumental, first of all, in the confidence, actually, to kind of jump sectors and jump functions. As I described, I was very wettish and kind of had a lot of confidence and capability built up to around a certain function, a certain capability. The MBA class and the discussions really opened up my eyes to the amount of experience and the wealth of skills that I had and how they so easily transferred to different sectors and different functions. And that was such an eye-opening experience and gave me such a lift. And like such a platform to be able to promote myself and apply for those positions. So I did that, and while I went then into the director of manufacturing technology role within the public sector, within a few months, I was actually transferred across to a completely novel role. As I was able to demonstrate that I had those capabilities to be cross-functional, and I had the language again to kind of communicate effectively with peers and colleagues and seniors outside of my own sectors, etc. I think the big thing that allowed me to be successful in a new, much larger organization that was a very different culture to what I'd come from was actually that kind of group that it's that pressure cooker again experience that Ola mentioned. It's kind of, you learn to get along with everybody that whether you want to or not, you have to get along. And you just need to get the result, and you learn to figure out what's important and what you just not bother about, and get on with it and get to the end line and produce what you need to produce and get on to the next thing. And it's that kind of being able to sift out what's priority, how to get the consensus on the priorities, and that focus on the priorities and the important elements. It has been a really useful skill set to be successful as well.
Thank you so much, Emma. Thank you so much. Great insight. Sharon?
Well, I suppose I've already spoken about my change in job or career. So clearly the MBA has been really useful in that space. I guess it's whatever, I just echo, I suppose, what everybody else has said. The teamwork aspects, like a lot of the management teamwork, pressure cooker type stuff, I suppose none of that is really new to me. But what I really needed was something that would tie all of my experience together, that would be recognizable outside in the wider world. And I know I've noticed already in the first year of the MBA that when you tell people that you're doing the MBA in Smurfit, and certainly when I was applying for my new role, that it was instantly recognizable what types of knowledge you were going to have, or what kind of skill sets you were going to have as a result of that. So I think that alone was so valuable in the process. It saves you having to try to translate everything that you've done into corporate speak. So from my point of view, that was something that was really valuable.
Thank you so much. Thanks to all of you. Thanks for giving your time, and thanks for sharing your insights. I can see we have questions in the Q&A, and at this point, I would pass it over to Adele for that panel Q&A session. Thanks again, and I'm sure there'll be lots of questions for you from the audience.
Yeah, thank you so much, Federica. There is a recurring theme, ladies, and I hope you don't mind me asking this, but I'll put it out to all of you, and if anyone wants to actually try break it down, we're being asked if you could try to describe a working week. So how many hours are roughly needed to commit to the executive MBA program in particular? So everybody understands that you're working full time, that you all have family commitments and lives. So could you try to explain to our audience roughly kind of what a week looks like, and possibly how many incremental hours study is required on a weekly basis? Don't include the actual study days, but let's just talk about kind of additional hours that are required to do your pre-reading and your preparation for your assignments, etc., etc.
I don't mind jumping in here.
Go for it, Emma. Yeah,
it'll be just one flavor of multiple different flavors that are out there. What I found worked best for myself was kind of doing later in the evenings, and I kind of did 8 to 11-ish, kind of twice a week, and then I would try and slot in a couple of hours as well at the weekend. So I had kind of 3 slots that I had in my week, and I generally got at least 2 of them, and that allowed me to take over with the pre-reading or module work, etc. It kind of fluctuated, that 3rd slot fluctuated depending on group calls, etc., or if I was, depending on the peaks and troughs, but roughly I was doing 2 to 3 kind of sets during the week of 2 to 3 hours, generally 8 to 11, 8 to 11, twice during the week, and then I would try and do like 6 to 8 or 6 to 9 one of the weekend mornings, depending on what was going on. And that kind of suited our setup. And I've only done first year, and I'm sure when I get to second year and things are different again, I'll have to go and find a different way to slot things in as things change, or kids' schedules change, or husband's schedule change, or but it was kind of trying to find the routine. The one thing I just, in terms of that regularity, there was definitely in the first year of the module, I was with the startup, and there was times where I'd have to kind of travel to the US or to Europe, travel at very, very short notice. And I would be gone, I'd be out of contact. And thankfully, I was well enough in with my group to be able to talk to them and say, hey, this has come up, I'm going to be offline. Let me know what I can do this week, or if there's stuff I can catch up with the week after. But actually talking to your group about as well when bleep hits the fan, so to speak. But you know what I mean, that you get to know your group as well, and like it doesn't need to be that all the time either. Like that's it going well. It can roll back a little bit if you talk to your group that you're working with.
Right, thanks, Emma. Anybody else like to add anything to that in terms of balancing the work life with the study or commitment? Thanks, Orla.
Adele, I don't know how relevant mine is now, because I did it in the olden days. So it was a Friday afternoon so lectures were from 2 to 6:30 on a Friday afternoon, and then from 9 to 2 on a Saturday morning. So we would have had, like a lot of some modules, you might have had like weekly submissions and weekly things to do. But I'm kind of polar opposite to Emma. So I'm a morning in that, like my hours were 6 to 8 in the morning. So I used to go into the office and do my 2 hours before work, because I'm fit for nothing in the evenings after work. So it's all about making it work for yourself and the times that work for you, and like when you find you can hit your levels of productivity. I would say it does massively vary over the course, depending on, when assignments are due and when the exams are, whatever way it is now. I found it quite like that. I think probably the new structure helps you kind of manage that a lot better now. But for sure, like it's just making it work for yourself and carving out the time.
So I think a recurring theme is getting a rhythm to studying, which works for you and your family and your commitments and everything else you have going on, and actually creating structured time. I believe some students get very proficient at actually learning in different formats, audiobooks on long travels, on train journeys, sharing tasks with team members, via whatever app or whatever the latest is for sharing out work, etc., etc. But as everyone has said this evening, you do go through it in tight groups, and you start to develop a way of covering for each other when somebody needs to travel for work, or indeed if somebody has a family commitment, and everything is possible. Sharon or Blessing, would you like to say anything just on that in terms of just, the volume of work involved and how you've managed it?
Well, when we got our introductory lectures last August, we were told that it would be approximately 125 hours per module. So I did a very quick back of an envelope calculation. I said, that will not be happening. So I'm going to have to speak. This is going to have to be
Don't tell me that,
up.
Sharon. Don't tell me that. You're not allowed to say that.
But look, it's entirely doable. I think that what people will find is that some modules will come really easily to you, and others will require a bit more work depending on what your experience is. So that's what I found anyway. I definitely use Speechify and apps like that. So anytime I was in the car, I listened to the case studies, I listened to the thing, and they're very interesting and very enjoyable. It doesn't feel like work in that, I would be nearly the opposite of both Emma and Orla, and I would just, grab an hour here and there whenever I could. Sometimes if I need to do an assignment, I would just square myself away on a Sunday and, get a break from the husband and the kids and have the excuse of the MBA, which was great. And just, do an assignment, really focus. I like to have, a good few hours to really get immersed in a topic and then finish it. But in terms of cases and reading and that kind of thing, I would just listen to it in the car, on the train, when I had an hour here and there. So you'll find your own rhythm. And, I think one thing that's really important to note, and like, all of the lectures are very cognizant of the fact that we're working full time.
and that we have families and lives, which is really, really, refreshing. And they are signposting you to all of the information, and they tend to identify as well the most important things to read or things that you have to know before the module, and everything else is, I won't say nice to know, it's certainly there, but when you get time to go back to it, or that if you come across this topic or you need to go back to it, you can do that. And I found that really useful. So look, I wouldn't stress about the volume or anything like that, just the way I would work. I would do what I have to do. I would dive into things that I wouldn't be too proficient on in much more detail than I would things that I would have some experience on.
Great. Thank you so much, Sharon. And any final words, Blessing? You had the luxury of being a full-time student, so you had opportunity to study on campus and take advantage of the facilities actually that we have at UCD, which actually one of our executive MBA said to me the other day is now her work pattern. She finishes up at work and she goes straight to the library in Belfield for 2 hours every evening and goes home at 7:30. So that's just another point worth making, is that there are plenty of facilities on campus, both in terms of exercise, study, food, to work around your routine if you happen to be located around the Dublin area. So Blessing, anything you'd like to add?
Just that the full-time experience is a bit different from the executive MBA, yeah. So for me, I found the demand on time changed per semester. So for me, first semester was the most demanding of all the semesters. By second and third semester, you kind of have gotten the hang of things, and the pressure, the volume of courses has reduced. The good thing is that you're not working alone, you have teams. So for areas where you do not have so much strength, there are other people who can come up for you, and then you get to pay them back where they need help as well. Yeah, I think so. You figure it out along the way. You adapt, you embrace the change, and you just go with the flow.
Yeah, thank you, Blessing. And it is important to say that not everybody on the call this evening is potentially looking at the Executive MBA, the part-time program. So we will have some audience members who hopefully are looking at the full-time MBA. And just to give you a small insight, generally speaking, classes start in the first trimester about 8:30. You probably have 3 different classes a day. There are set times during the week where you get to study. There are study breaks planned in, and then there's the formal exam timetable. And so it is very much like returning to college, to your undergrad, but obviously with a much stronger emphasis on teamwork and a different, I would say, classroom experience in that, as per with the Executive MBA, rather than being taught in class, you are debating and inputting and synthesizing your observations that you bring from your career to date and from your learning outside of the classroom. Okay, super. So one of the other themes that we have here in all of the questions, I'm just going to kind of bring it together as a theme, and I'm going to try to just explain it myself first, and then maybe I'll call in some of the panelists to bring in their experience. But we have a lot of people asking about what kind of careers and the MBA offers people and what kind of doors the MBA opens. And I think the first thing I'd like to say is that I touched very briefly on LEAP, which is the Leadership and Employability Program. And just for Orla's benefit, that's a new program we've introduced to both the full-time MBA and to the Executive MBA. And it is a 4-credit module which is dedicated to developing your behavioral competencies, to allowing you the time to consider your strengths and the opportunities you have to round out the softer skills that we know are very important in today's workplace. So many of you will be familiar with psychometric testing. Many of you will either have participated in something like that. Many of you possibly will be participating in some form of a leadership development program in your current jobs. And if you're anything like me, when I was working, there's a certain amount of that you kind of just put over there because it's not part of the day job, and you just keep doing and doing and doing. And I think sometimes women are notoriously bad at not focusing on themselves. So what the MBA allows you to do is to give that some time. So to give yourself the time to think about, what is my dream job? What am I actually good at? And what will somebody pay me to do? And somewhere in the middle there is your career future. And over the course of the 12-month program or the 24-month program, we really spend quite an amount of time looking at that. All of our MBA students go through a psychometric assessment. Our full-time students participate in an assessment centre, which is very common now in the workplace in terms of candidate selection. And then we allow people the time to actually consider their own personal career development plan. We have a dedicated MBA careers manager that works on a one-to-one basis with all of our MBAs. Sometimes on the executive side of the house, and not everybody wants to have that conversation while they're studying their MBA, and that is open to everyone 2 years post completion of the program. For some people, opportunities present themselves while they're on the program, and they take advantage of that, both in terms of CV development, interview skills, and really understanding whether that role that you're going for is the right one for you. And certainly on the full-time program, it really does make up a large part of the program as you prepare for entering the Irish workplace, potentially for the first time for many of our candidates. So that is the LEAP program in a nutshell. It has many aspects to it. So in terms of answering people's questions about careers, I would say keep an open mind. It is about a journey. It does happen on the program, and we will take you through a process whereby you will explore your career opportunities at your own pace. Would any of my panelists who are experiencing the LEAP program right now or have experienced it last year like to comment?
Just to say that I know in our class that already at least 6 people have changed their careers already, and you know we're not even finished the first year, and you know quite a few of those have been quite significant changes. Mm-hmm. And I suppose what, you know, in terms of the types of roles, you know, obviously there's no simple answer to that, but what I've seen a trend in, and including myself, is that many of these the roles that people were in were probably at, you know, mid to senior management level anyway, but there was something missing in terms of making that leap to the next level, the real decision making level, or at the I suppose the value level that you would want to be at within their own sectors, and through the leap they were able to make that change. So I suppose, you know, pardon the pun, that they made that leap. It gave them the confidence to go for those roles. And I've no doubt that there's other people in the class as well who are in the process of moving now, because there's almost a ripple effect, you know, when you start to see people start to make those kind of braver moves and change, you know, role or job or sector. So I suppose there's no one particular role, but I would say, you know, to make that leap from mid to senior up to a more senior level is what a lot of people are looking for on the executive MBA anyway.
Yeah, super. Thanks, Sharon. Blessing, you experienced the program from soup to nuts, as they say, from start to finish. Is there anything you'd like to comment, maybe particularly on the assessment centre or any of the career development opportunities?
Yeah, I would say all of the career development opportunities, the employability center, the executive coaching, all of those came to bear. It was so impactful. I found it so impactful, so very relevant. I do have this story that by the time I was done with the MBA and had started actively applying for jobs, the format of my CV and the fact that I had Smurfit MBA, I had recruiters headhunting me on LinkedIn before I could apply. Like it was that impactful. Yeah. So yeah, it's made a huge difference. So I would say anyone coming on the MBA, by all means, take advantage of all the seminars and all the workshops and every single thing that is thrown at you, because it plays its part, it comes to bear, it comes together, and it makes a difference.
Yeah, super. Thank you so much. So we're going to move now to the next section of the evening, because I can see here that all of the other questions are pertaining to the applications process, to the scholarship awarding process, and general requirements, including the concept of a GMAT for the program. So I can see my colleague Mairead has joined us there. So I'm going to thank the panelists for the moment. And I will invite you back should any further questions arise. But for now, I'm going to say thank you so much for all of your insights and for all of your contributions. And I'm going to take one moment to actually gather myself and share Mairead's slides so that I don't frighten the life out of her. Just a moment now, and I will do that for you, Mairead.
Thank you, Adele.
Yeah, and maybe Mairead, we can just give me a second now as I figure out all of the buttons that I have here.
No problem. I'll just mention a lot of questions that came in from the audience tonight were around the application process, and a lot to do with scholarships and the GMAT that was mentioned earlier by Sharon, actually. So we have a little bit of news on that, actually, for the people who are applying for the EMBA. And we can go through that. But generally speaking, on balance, the applications process is extremely straightforward. The criteria for eligibility is basically, it's very similar, but slightly different, I suppose, for both programs. For the full-time MBA, we need a minimum of 3 years experience, but ideally 5, and it needs to be professional experience whereby, you know, it's not internships or short-term contracts. It's meaningful, good quality experience where you're working in a job and you're making decisions, and you know, it's a proper job, as they say. For the the executive MBA, we need a minimum of 7 years professional experience. We will consider people who have 5, but again, it depends on the type and the quality of that experience. We also require a competitive GMAT score or an executive assessment score. Now, this is essential for the full-time MBA. However, based on your experience for the executive MBA, based on your overall application, there's a possibility that it will be waived. There's a strong possibility that it will be waived, but we reserve the right to require you to do a GMAT or an executive assessment test. One of the reasons could be that you haven't got an undergraduate degree, but you have excellent professional experience and you make a valuable contribution to the executive MBA class. But we need to just qualify you by doing the GMAT or the EA. But for the full time, you do need to do it. We need 2 completed recommendation forms. If you're coming from outside of Ireland, where English isn't your native language, we need an English language test, and to complete the application form, plus obviously an additional or an up-to-date copy of your CV. Now, what I will say is that there are some essay questions, if I can speak properly tonight, on the application form, and they're around: why do you want to do an MBA? What do you hope to achieve? What's brought you to this point? What happens then is your application is reviewed in the whole, and you are invited to come for an interview. It's on Zoom. It will be either with myself or Adele or our colleague Kieran, the academic director, more than likely, one of us, and that's an opportunity to discuss your application, again, your motivations, what you're hoping to achieve, and I suppose what you contribute to the class from our point of view as well, because we like to create a class that's as diverse as possible, where, you know, everybody feels that they can contribute in a valuable and meaningful way, and thus learn. The learning outcome for everybody is enriched because of that. So that's basically that's the full process. Then I send your application along with my recommendations to an MBA review committee, and then you're basically given an offer or a conditional offer if you need to fulfill one of the requirements, say with the GMAT or the IELTS test, the English language test. Sorry, Adele. So it's very straightforward. And I suppose what I would say basically is to contact me. I'm available at any stage to have a chat with anyone about, some people just aren't sure if they have the right kind of experience. There was a couple of questions about that tonight. There was a barrister that asked, or a HR person. So sometimes it's good just to have a chat directly, and I can give you, a good insight into it and direct you. But I'm available at any stage to, reach out to me, and we can, as I said, have an off the record chat, no problem. Sorry, Adele, we can move on. A lot of the questions tonight about the various scholarship opportunities, which clearly we do have. We have some high profile media ones, as you can see, Business and Finance, the Journal. We have a GMAT scholarship. There is also an Aspire scholarship, but there's a number of Aspire scholarships, but they're donated from a private donor, essentially. And that's a process that you can apply for. It's based on sort of, financial need. The closing date for that is the 13th of May. But all the other scholarships, Women on the MBA, the Image, as you can see, the list there, it's, fairly widespread. The process for that will be for this year, because we did it last year and it worked pretty well, where we felt we made good decisions. Is to submit. You need to have applied and accepted your place by the end of April. So as you can appreciate, time is moving on now. So I would recommend that if you're thinking of applying, to do so sooner rather than later. And if your application isn't completely 100% finished by the time you want to send it, just send it to me anyway. Once the kind of main components are on it, your CV, you filled out the questions, you've sent off some emails for your recommendations, but don't hold back. I would recommend applying rather than not applying, and we can sort out the other bits and bobs afterwards as such, But what we did last year and what we're planning to do this year is that on the 30th of April, we're going to offer the opportunity to anyone who's interested to apply for a scholarship to basically submit a 3-minute video on themselves as to why they warrant a scholarship, why they merit a scholarship. And then that will be, the videos will be watched by a committee, and then the committee comes together and decides on, what scholarship people should be awarded. Now, what I will say about that is we look at the holistic person, the holistic application. So obviously your academic credentials will be taken into account, your professional experience, but also what you contribute, to the community, or other hobbies, or, life experiences that you've been involved in. And part of that is in terms of how you contribute to the MBA, to Smurfit, to the community, to the class, how engaged will you be? We judge all of that essentially. So it's a very holistic judgment in terms of scholarships. But again, what I would say is that I'm more than happy to talk to people individually about that. If you want more information, or you're just wondering about it, there's no problem with that. And then there was a couple of questions on scholarships, just about a GMAT. Do you need a GMAT to be considered for a scholarship? No, you don't. If it's on the MBA, it will help you, but it's not essential by any means. And then another question was just advice for the application process. I think I've covered it off, but again, if you want to reach out to me, please do so directly, and I'm happy to chat to you. Thanks, Adele.
Great. Thank you so much, Mairead. That was great. And just my own kind of anecdotal experience of the GMAT, should you be aiming for, or indeed even the EA, if you're aiming for the full-time MBA, is don't let it be a stumbling block. You've heard a couple of people from our panel this evening saying that once you actually start, it's really just get on with it, just do it. To me, what it does is it gives you a level of confidence that you are going to arrive into the classroom and be able to hold your head high amongst your peers, because you will know that everybody who's in the full-time MBA class has done it and is you are at their standard, and it won't hold you back. And if you're looking to apply for a significant scholarship on the EMBA side of the house, as Mairead says, it is something to consider because it will add to your application. Okay, so I think we have gone through all of the questions there this evening. I'm just going to take one last look in case anything has come in. There's people still asking there about scholarships, so hopefully we've covered everything. I think the last thing that people are asking, Mairead, is how to get in contact with you.
Yes.
It's mba@ucd.ie to get in contact with Mairead, and that is an email address which is manned by a number of people. So you can please feel free to contact Mairead in that, or indeed you can connect with either myself, Edel O'Leary, on LinkedIn, or indeed with Mairead Mulvey on LinkedIn, and we'd be delighted to speak with you. Something other thing we offer, and well, indeed, is if you would like to speak to a current student that is potentially in your sector or is working in a sector that you're aspiring to actually enter, we can certainly connect you with a current student. And we really do recommend actually as a candidate that you do reach out to some of our current students so that you really understand the program and you know you've chosen the right program for you. So without further ado, I would like to just ask our panelists to come back this evening, and to Federica, really just to say thank you genuinely to every single one of you for your contributions this evening. I know it's been a long evening and everybody is probably dying to get home and crack on with their families and some rest. So thank you all so much for being with us. And thank you, Federica, for hosting and for facilitating our panel this evening. Thank you to all my colleagues in the background who've been answering your questions, to Catherine and Sinead and to Mairead, and to our marketing colleagues, Kathy, and to our technical assistant, Dennis. So thank you all so much. And hopefully we'll hear from you over the next coming weeks. We look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.